Really excited to talk today about AEO, SEO, GEO, and all of the silos that could potentially be being created as the organization starts to think about all of these different ways for acquiring customers. How do we think about this more as a unified strategy as opposed to what it really is at its core, which is discoverability for the brand? So thinking about the organization and all of our companies kind of coming up to speed with AEO, GEO, was there a moment that it clicked for the organization when this is like, an acquisition channel around discoverability as opposed to like the hot new thing that's coming up? Tell me a little bit.
For me, it kind of clicked with me realizing this was going to be an issue. So I built a website using AI to generate content in 2023, complete garbage. 2024 is a little bit better, but it was really this beginning of this year where the output of ChatGPT and Perplexity was useful. And I have gone from a 90% Google search behavior down to a 90% ChatGPT search behavior. I barely go to Google now. It's like the last step. And so once I started realizing, like, okay, this is what I'm doing, I'm now talking to other people, explaining to them why I'm using ChatGPT, and they started using ChatGPT like this is the future. So you've got to start gaming that system right away. And we started paying attention in our metrics and our analytics, seeing that we're getting crawled more by them. And as we tested more, we started getting crawled even more. So this isn't a Google authorship. This isn't a Google AMP fad. This is the next evolution in search. So that's why we're headed that way.
Yeah, I like what you said, that it's the next evolution in search, because that's kind of how we've been thinking about it too. It almost feels like AIOs came out and it was featured snippets 2.0, but then you look at how everybody's using AI. It's not just for marketing or for SEO, but just how it's integrating into people's lives and the way that they interact with the internet. It's an evolution of behavior. There was voice, there was keywords, going all the way back. It was just type in whatever you want, pets.com, chewy.com. But now I think it's the thing that really clicked for us as an organization was when it was so fragmented. The idea that everybody was on something else, especially early on. Are you on Perplexity? Are you on ChatGPT? Are you on Google? What is the difference between AI mode and Gemini? And now the idea of bringing that all together and coming up with how do we just show up? How do we show up how we want, where we want, when we want? And tying it back to what users are looking for rather than the platform specific or the keyword specific, and focusing on the behavioral aspect, I think that's been the big shift for us after realizing that everybody was everywhere all at once.
So all of the above for what was already said, but I would just add that we, at the very onset of even SGE, we started to look at comparing the insights that we could see in organic search with insights that we could see from social listening. And we were not surprised to see that if people are searching for information, they're also talking about it on social media. And so we used that as a way to identify those gaps in our strategy to really be that thought leader in a specific topic within healthcare. And healthcare is challenging, guys, because Google just latched on. They were like, this is the market we're going to pin. We're going to do 75% of AIOs for every healthcare topic. But we found, I think the really recently, the turning point for us was we targeted a very specific condition topic, and both through the AI monitoring that we have, as well as some homegrown, literally just going to Google, we found that we were cited both for our blog article, our condition page, as well as some of the Instagram content that we produced. So it just really reiterates the need for your content to be omnipresent. It's not okay to just have a blog post anymore.
It's interesting. Wei mentioned earlier today that she had done, it was 225 meetings with executives over the past 6 months or something like that. And I think the attention that this is getting is really driving change in organizations. How have you guys thought about enabling organizations around this evolution?
So for us, it's been a little easier than some because our C-suite is very into AI. So they're helping us with, enabling, we're doing pilots, we're doing a lot of testing and learning. And we have been at this point, I think, since 2023. So especially for a finance brand, it was nice to be one of the early movers. But I think for us, what's really worked well has been aligning to other people's goals. So AI is a tool. It's not a catch-all magic solution, and we've been saying, how can AI slot in? What is the problem you're trying to solve? How can we help you? How can we help you with visibility? And then that's come back now as we're trying to make holistic strategies and how do we show up across, AI search, and that's what I call it. I know that's not in the, the meeting title, but I just call it AI search because it's ultimately just search plus. So now they're like, hey, how can we help you help us? So it's kind of that feedback loop where we're hoping to help other people in the organization as a subject matter experts and kind of lead the path forward as SEOs, who I think are the best connected people to connect to all these people. We're a connector channel. We sit between so many other disciplines. Now, how can we help them do what they need to do to make the whole company more visible and work better?
Yeah, I think a really critical line in every SEO job description should always be an evangelist for search. And AI has just really presented that as a great opportunity. So if you are doing your job right, you are educating and proactively communicating to leadership that you might see some adjustments in traffic. You might see a decline because people are finding the information, and zero-click search was already relevant on channels like social media, but now it is extending even further with Google, with AI. People aren't visiting your website unless they're really ready to make that conversion. And I think that that's really critical for communicating up the ladder to leadership, especially if you have a leadership team that's really invested in high traffic volume, and their, your primary KPIs were more traffic, more traffic, more traffic. It's really critical early on that you communicate and say, hey, we need to shift to more qualified conversion points or qualified metrics, while also taking into account all the things that we've heard earlier today, which you need to be monitoring your AI visibility as well.
I'm kind of lucky because most of Chewy's from Amazon, and they know the value of organic search. The other part is my C-suite and senior leadership is intellectually curious, and they always want to learn. I'm new to this culture, super heavy writing culture, so you're constantly writing papers. Previous stops in my career, in last 23 years, I would probably be in a lot of trouble. When we saw traffic going down, impressions going up, AI activity going up, instead of them, figuring out blame, they actually asked, is this a new behavior? And so after doing research, writing the long paper, they're ready to embrace, there's going to be new metrics that we need to pay attention for when it comes to organic or AI search referral traffic.
And this is making me think of a question that's not on the list. So going a little rogue here, but a couple of the conversations I've had today is like, how do you think about structuring an organization around this? And I'm wondering if there's anything that's changed in the way your businesses are thinking about structuring an organization to be successful and have this not be siloed.
Yeah, so I think there's been a couple presentations. I know John presented earlier on the concept of democratizing SEO. Personally, that terrifies me because there can't be too many cooks in the kitchen, but I think there are specific roles and responsibilities that you can democratize, right? Like you can not necessarily encourage everyone to be identifying the topics and the traffic that you're targeting or the keywords that you're targeting, but you can definitely evangelize using the platforms like Conductor to further the efficacy of the content that's being created. So I think that part is really important. We've found too that just a stronger collaboration with the communications team that's responsible for media and pressers is really critical, because I think the piece that Wei talked about earlier, being able to see what the sentiment is about your brand, is going to be really critical in this new era.
Found it.
Broke it.
I figured it out. We're all SEOs. We adapt. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think from an organizational perspective, like structurally, this is the most integrated a lot of these teams have been for us. Often corp comms will do their own thing, performance marketing we'll do our own thing, brand team will do their own thing, and now we're really finding that to be successful, we need to work together. We need to figure out, hey, how are you building the content? Are you putting the right things? Are you doing brand content? Are you making sure that it's AI optimized as well as the brand messaging? How do we distribute that through a third party? How do we work with the people buying affiliate partnerships to make sure that they're the ones that are the most impactful? I mean, it's funny that backlinks are now, coming back up after a long time of becoming less important, but now it's like, your comms team is your partner. That's how you get your message out into the world. That's how you create that little echo chamber that you need for AI to go, oh yeah, that is what I think, because I've heard it 7 times in 9 different places. So I think, working cross-functionally is more important than ever.
Yeah. Who here was doing organic search in like 2000 to 2010?
Stefan, Stan.
All right, there's actually quite a few. Back then, it was amazing if you weren't doing organic search then. You could gamify the system, you could do all these cool tricks. Now it's all penalized or devalued. These engines are immature. Sure, they have a lot of Google's people and other Microsoft people at these platforms, so they've got a little head start. They're still in their infancy. You just ask it. I ask ChatGPT all the time. It's like my personal C3PO. What does it take to rank? And it'll tell you. Take advantage of all of that. And if you aren't moving towards AI now, you're going to become Kodak or Blockbuster. Just like Chewy, like I said earlier, they're intellectually curious. They know you need to act now, not next year or the year after, because the evolution of AI is hockey sticking. It's not this traditional slowly up to the right path that technology takes. We've gone from the wooden paper airplane that Orville Wright brothers created yesterday to today having a space shuttle. That's how fast this is moving. So
How
if
long
your
do you
company,
think before we'll see like the Blockbusters of the world?
I don't know, a year or 2 in some industries.
Fast. So let's talk a little bit about customers. I loved we were saying about like putting yourself in the consumer's position. It's what's so interesting about search in general. Customers don't really care where they're searching. They're across Google, ChatGPT, Alexa. They're just looking for answers. How do you shift from thinking we need separate strategies for each platform to we need one great content strategy that works everywhere?
It's scale, right? You can't publish multiple pages, one for Google, one for ChatGPT. And at the end of the day, Google's driving most of your traffic right now. Sure, that is shifting, but it's still slow. So create the best experience, but it doesn't hurt Google to have more content. And so start testing with ChatGPT and Perplexity. You're going to see you should add schema. What kind of schema? FAQ schema. Well, that means you need FAQs on the page. Start deploying those, weaving it into your current content, and see how is Google going to react. Probably better, more content, and you're going to probably see more bot activity from the AEO platforms.
Got it this time. I think adding on to that, it's about figuring out the intent and actually solving for the problem rather than optimizing towards the specific term. Like Garth was saying, you can't build enough content to get every single query. How are you going to build, something for a 45-year-old who wants running shoes and doesn't, Seth's example from earlier. So you need to figure out what are the core elements? What are the core identifiers? How do you build that, and how do you distribute that? How do you work that across your messaging, across your team? And how do you get it out there so that one thing is doing the most that it can, because you can't scale enough to do everything all at once. You have to be deliberate and strategic and tactical about how you are moving forward. But I think as long as you have a deep understanding of the customer and what they want, or your target, or whatever you're trying to do, and you figure out the best way to work that goal in and what channel that is, whether it's Google, social, YouTube, whatever, I think you have to start with intent first and then work backwards from there for how do you build things that support that need for your target audience.
Yeah, to just jump off from that too, I think just generally the concept of big rock content is more critical than ever, because you still need to have that destination on your website where you want people to eventually land, but maybe, it doesn't make sense to only have that resource now. You need to have social media content. You need to have supplementary blog articles that don't necessarily target the same queries or the same prompts, but complement it enough that you can kind of guide the user through that experience. And even if that means they're not clicking through and they're just seeing the answer, still target those people also ask, because I think that helps to grow your brand awareness ultimately.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about the intent and the slide from Seth's keynote this morning of like heart, mind, soul. It's one that has been in probably every Conductor presentation for years, and just it is so consistent no matter how much the industry changes. So we've talked a lot about like building a holistic strategy. Are there any things that we should be thinking about that actually should be tactics specific for AEO and AI search that maybe aren't part of that like traditional SEO foundation?
So I guess technically schema markup is part of traditional SEO foundation, but I think that it has been not always adopted across the board because it has traditionally been very difficult to measure the efficacy of schema markup unless you're very intentional about benchmarking your impressions and clicks prior to. I think now moving into this world where agents are going to benefit from more structured data, I think earlier Eduardo talked about that a little bit. It's going to be really important that you continue to not just have schema markup for the sake of having schema markup, but having really intelligent, strategic types of structured markup. So like, I don't think that having just article markup is sufficient. If you're a healthcare brand, you need to be going into the deep depths of the library and taxonomy.
When you unify your approach, how does that change what you measure? Obviously, we've been talking a lot about measurement today and the metrics that matter. How do you really think about the most important metrics to report on, whether it's to executives or across the organization right now?
We're focusing a lot more on authority, interest, sentiment. Other people have been saying that, but that's what you can get out of the LLMs now. I'm sure at some point, that may change as they do more agentic stuff and there's more traffic, and depending on your industry, especially if you're e-com, that may already be changing with some of the new announcements. But I think it's, especially for me, I'm on a performance team. We're focused on acquisition, lead generation. So it's been interesting to have that conversation going, hey, look, this part of the funnel now, we're moving up. We're not in the middle, we're not at the bottom. This is about interest, but I think it's been well received because they know that if we are not in the conversation, all of our competitors will be. So I think it's been interesting to focus on interest rather than acquisition as a performance marketer. But our leadership has been receptive to it because they know that that is the sign of the times and that attention is the new, the new currency, essentially.
Yeah, measuring visibility is, you guys are in your infancy of doing this as well. 12 months ago, very limited capabilities, but now, light years ahead. What we have been seeing, though, is, impressions are going up insane amounts. Bot activity has been going up, which you do want to see and measure if you're not doing that. Because you can explain to your C-suite, look, just your own search behavior. What are you doing? Well, I'm using ChatGPT. Great. So should you expect more traffic from Google if you're doing that and I'm doing that? So no. So now we need to figure out how do we determine how are we showing up as a mention and a citation, kind of get away from clicks, but basically an impression-based model. Now let's look at our engagement metrics, our conversions, our orders, our revenue, new customers. We've been seeing some interesting things at Chewy, but that's pointing to success, but I do have to retrain people that it's not just about clicks anymore.
Yeah, I think that clicks are a little bit dead, like you can't really measure performance like you used to because a lot of that awareness click activity that wasn't very valuable is gone now. So it's actually kind of tightened your visibility to the more qualified experience and engagements.
All right, last question. What's the one myth about unifying these strategies or AEO in general that you want to bust today?
So I want to bust that tracking keywords is no longer critical to your strategy.
Ooh.
Because
hot take.
Yes, very hot take. I think that you can still get a lot of really great directional insight from tracking keywords. You know, all ships rise with the tide. That's a mantra that we've really indoctrinated at our team. What we find is, and I think I just read an article on Search Engine Land yesterday that it cited that we're still seeing that if you are on page 1 of Google for a keyword that you're targeting, you're more likely to be cited in LLMs and AI overviews. So that strategy is still really critical, but it doesn't stop there. So I think that's really the big takeaway, is that you should use that data, you know, directionally, but take it a step further, build those topic clusters, look at prompts, what are people actually talking to an agent about, rather than just kind of stopping at, you know, people also ask queries.
AI topic maps, perhaps?
Yeah, you know?
I think that the myth that SEO is dead is worth busting, because I think, as I mentioned before, I think this is, honestly, SEOs are uniquely positioned to help carry their org through this new transition. I think that we're used to working cross-functionally. We're used to being, you know, in the middle of things. We're used to working with data and ambiguity and sometimes, you know, not 100% clear data. It's not like paid search. We have to, you know, infer a lot. And I think those are valuable skills. And I think that a lot of the core SEO tactics, like you were just saying, they're still working for AIO. The core fundamentals are the same. It's just, you know, a new platform. It's AI search. You know, it's still optimizable. It's still something that we can use our skills to win.
Yeah, to build upon that, we're educators. We're educating the engines, whether it's AI or Google or Bing, what an image asset is, what a video is, what the subject matter target of the page is. It's the same for AI search right now. Now, when that eventually gets replaced, we have a lot more things to worry about. If a program can look at a page, an image, and a video without seeing words to understand what it's about. So yeah, SEO is not dead. It never has been dead. And at least for the time being, it's still alive.
I love that. Educators, wisdom activators. What a good way to bring this full circle. It's awesome. Want to just say a huge thank you to our panelists, Jessie, Evan, Garth. Really appreciate you guys being here. And of course, everyone here for joining us at C3 today. Thank you.